I spent years trying to impress everyone until one moment made me stop. I don't remember the exact moment it started, not the day, not the hour, but I remember the feeling, that quiet pressure in my chest that said, "You're not enough yet." I was 19 when I first noticed how much of my life revolved around what other people thought of me. It didn't feel obvious back then. It felt normal. Actually, it felt necessary, because when you grow up in a house where approval is rare and silence means disappointment, you learn something early. You learn that love sometimes feels like something you have to earn, and I tried to earn it everywhere. School, work, friendships, family, even strangers, especially strangers. I grew up in a quiet suburb outside Columbus, Ohio. The kind of place where every lawn looked exactly the same, and everyone knew what car your parents drove. My father worked in construction. Hard man, not cruel, but distant. The kind of man who believed praise made people lazy. My mother worked nights at a hospital. She was kind, exhausted, loving in the quiet ways, but there wasn't much room in our house for emotions, only expectations. My older brother, Jake, was the one everyone admired. He was the athlete, the confident one, the one teachers remembered, the one neighbors talked about. Jake didn't even try to impress people, and somehow that made them admire him more. I was the opposite. Quiet, observant, always. Adjusting myself to fit the room. If someone liked sports, I liked sports. If someone liked music, suddenly I liked that band too. If someone laughed at a joke, I laughed louder. I thought that was how belonging worked. You became whatever people wanted, and eventually they would like you. High school only made that instinct stronger, because high school is basically a giant stage where everyone pretends to be someone impressive. The smart kid, the funny kid, the rebellious kid, the popular kid. Everyone plays a role. Mine was simple. The guy who tries, the guy who helps, the guy who never causes problems. Teachers liked me, classmates trusted me. People would say things like, "Ethan's such a good guy," or "Ethan's reliable." At the time, I thought that meant I was doing life correctly. But there's something strange about trying to be liked by everyone. You slowly disappear, piece by piece. I didn't notice it then, but looking back now, I can see it clearly. I stopped asking myself what I actually wanted. I only asked one question: what will make them approve of me? College made it worse, because suddenly the audience got bigger. I went to a state university 2 hours from home. I told everyone I was studying business because it was a smart choice. Truth is, I picked it because it sounded impressive. My roommate, Tyler, wanted to become an entrepreneur, so I pretended I did too. My friends joined a gym, so I joined. My classmates talked about internships, so I chased internships. I was constantly adjusting myself like a mirror, reflecting whoever stood in front of it. At first, it worked. People liked me, professors trusted me, employers noticed me. I built a life that looked successful from the outside, but inside, something strange started happening. I felt tired all the time, not physically, emotionally, because when you're performing every day, you're never really resting. Every conversation becomes a test, every decision becomes a performance. Even small things started to feel exhausting, like choosing what clothes to wear or posting something online. I would sit there thinking, will people think this looks good? Will this make me look successful? Will this make them respect me? Imagine living like that every day. It's like being trapped in a room full of mirrors, and every mirror is judging you. By the time I turned 24, my life looked impressive, at least on paper. I had a good corporate job in Chicago. Nice apartment, nice clothes, nice car, the kind of life that makes relatives nod proudly at family gatherings. But something inside me felt hollow, not sad, just disconnected, like I was watching my own life from the outside. I remember one specific night. It was a Friday. My coworkers invited me to a rooftop bar downtown. Everyone was dressed perfectly, drinks in hand, music playing, Chicago lights glowing behind. The skyline, the kind of night people post on Instagram with captions like, "Living my best life." And I stood there holding a glass of whiskey I didn't even like, laughing at jokes I didn't care about, talking about deals and promotions, and suddenly a strange thought crossed my mind. If I disappeared tonight, Would any of these people actually know who I am? Not the polished version, the real version, the quiet kid who used to draw for hours, the guy who loved writing stories, the person who sometimes just wanted silence. I looked around the rooftop, everyone smiling, everyone networking, everyone performing, and for the first time, I wondered something terrifying. Maybe we were all pretending, but none of us wanted to admit it. That thought followed me home. It followed me into the elevator, into my apartment, into the silence. I remember sitting on my couch that night, staring at the city lights outside my window. Chicago was beautiful, alive, busy, endless, but I felt completely alone inside it, not because I didn't know people, because none of them really knew me. And the truth hit me slowly. It wasn't their fault, it was mine, because I had spent years building a version of myself designed for approval, not truth, approval. And when you build your life on approval, something dangerous happens. You forget who you are without it. The next morning, something happened that I didn't expect, something small, almost invisible, but it would become the moment that eventually changed everything. It started with a phone call from my mother. She rarely called early, so I answered immediately. Her voice sounded tired, but calm. She told me my father had been taken to the hospital. Heart problem, nothing catastrophic, but serious enough to scare everyone. I booked a flight that afternoon. 4 hours later, I was back in Ohio, walking through the same hospital halls my mother had worked in for years, the smell of antiseptic, the quiet beeping of machines, the sound of distant footsteps. Hospitals have a strange effect on people. They strip away illusions. Suddenly, promotions don't matter, clothes don't matter, reputation doesn't matter. Only people matter. When I walked into my father's room, he looked smaller than I remembered. He wasn't hooked up to many machines, but seeing him in that bed changed something inside me, because fathers aren't supposed to look fragile. He nodded when he saw me. No dramatic moment. No emotional speech, just a quiet nod. That was always our language. Jake arrived an hour later, still confident, still loud, still the same older brother who filled every room. We talked with doctors, sat with our mom, waited. Hospitals are mostly waiting, and during that waiting, something strange happened. For the first time in years, nobody cared what I did for a living. Nobody asked about my promotion. Nobody asked about my apartment in Chicago. The only question anyone asked was simple. How is your father doing? It was so simple, and yet it made everything else feel small. That night I stayed in the hospital while Jake went home. Around 2 a.m. the hallways were quiet, nurses moving softly, lights dim. My father was asleep. I sat there scrolling through my phone, emails, work messages, social media, and suddenly it all felt ridiculous. People arguing online, people posting achievements, people chasing attention. Thought about how much of my life had been spent trying to look impressive, trying to prove something, trying to be enough for everyone. And sitting there in that hospital chair, I realized something that hit me like cold water. None of that mattered. Here, not even a little. If my father had died that night, nobody would have asked about my resume. Nobody would have cared about my job title. They would only care about one thing. Was I there? Was I present? Was I real? And that question stayed in my mind as the night passed. But the moment that truly changed, everything hadn't happened yet. It would come the next morning in a conversation so simple, most people would have forgotten it immediately. But for me, it broke something open, and once that door opened, I would never see my life the same way again. Morning in a hospital doesn't arrive the way it does anywhere else. There's no peaceful sunrise, no quiet stretching into the day. It arrives with fluorescent lights turning brighter, with carts rolling through hallways, with nurses changing shifts and coffee machines starting to hum again. I hadn't slept. Sometime around 5 in the morning, I must have closed my eyes for a few minutes. But my neck hurt and my back felt stiff from that uncomfortable hospital chair. When I opened my eyes again, sunlight was slipping through the blinds. My father was awake. He was staring toward the window. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Our relationship had always lived inside silence. Conversations between us were short, practical, efficient. "How are you feeling?" I finally asked. He shrugged slightly. "Still here." That was his humor. Dry, minimal. But something about his voice felt different that morning. Slower, more thoughtful. A nurse walked in, checked his monitor, adjusted a few things, then left again. The room was quiet. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Work. Emails. A message from my manager asking if I could join a call later. Another message from a coworker about a presentation. Even sitting in that hospital room, part of my brain immediately switched into performance mode. Respond fast. Look responsible. Look committed. Look impressive. I started typing, and then I heard my father's voice. "You working?" I looked up, just answering something quickly. He watched me for a moment, not judging, just observing. Then he said something that at first sounded simple, but it would stay with me for years. "You're always doing that." I frowned slightly. "Doing what?" He nodded toward my phone. "Working, proving something." I laughed a little. That's just how jobs are now. He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he looked back toward the window again. After a few seconds, he spoke again. "You remind me of someone." "Who?" He paused, then said quietly, "Me." That surprised me. My father had never compared us before, not once. "What do you mean?" I asked. He took a slow breath. "When I was your age, I worked every extra shift I could find." He shifted slightly in the hospital bed. "I thought if I worked harder than everyone else, people would respect me." I leaned back in the chair, listening. "That how you got into construction?" I asked. He nodded. "Started small, carried bricks, mixed cement, did whatever the boss asked." He gave a small smile. "Never said no." That sounded familiar. "Too familiar?" "I kept thinking one day it would pay off," he continued. "One day people would finally see I was worth something." He turned his head toward me again. "But you know what actually happened?" "What?" "I just got more work." I smiled slightly, but he didn't. Instead, he said something that made the smile fade. "No one ever tells you when you're trying too hard to be respected." The room went quiet again. I didn't know what to say, because a strange feeling was starting to grow in my chest. Recognition, like he was describing something inside me I had never admitted out loud. He looked at my phone again. "You like your job?" The honest answer would have been complicated, but my automatic answer came out first. "Yeah, it's good." He raised one eyebrow. That didn't sound convincing. I hesitated. "It's fine." He studied my face. Fathers have a strange ability to read things you try to hide. "Fine," he repeated slowly. Then he nodded. That's the word people use when they don't want to admit something. I looked down at my hands. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said the sentence that would replay in my mind hundreds of times later. "Don't spend your life trying to prove you matter." I looked up. He continued, "You either matter to people or you don't." The simplicity of it hit me like a quiet punch. "But you can't force it," he added. "You can only live honestly." I sat there processing those words because something about them felt uncomfortable, almost threatening. Not because they were wrong, because they might be right. My phone buzzed again. Another message from work. This time I didn't reach for it. My father noticed. "Big meeting?" he asked. "Something like that." "You should go if it matters." I thought about that. The presentation, the emails, the constant pressure to stay visible at work, the fear of being seen as less committed. But then I looked around the hospital room, the quiet machines, the sunlight through the window, my father sitting there after a heart scare, and suddenly the idea of that meeting felt absurd. "I'll deal with it later," I said. He nodded slowly. "Good." Then he said something else, something softer. "Your brother used to think I didn't notice how hard you tried." I blinked. "What?" He thought I only paid attention to him. He gave a small, tired smile. He was louder. That was definitely true. "But I saw you." Those 3 words landed heavier than anything else he had said. "I saw you." I felt something strange in my throat. Not sadness. Something deeper. Relief, maybe. Because part of me had spent years thinking I was invisible to him. He looked back toward the window again. "You know what I regret most?" I waited. He exhaled slowly. Spending so many years trying to prove I deserved respect, instead of just living the life I actually wanted. The room stayed quiet after that. Those words hung in the air, and something inside my mind started shifting, not dramatically, more like a crack forming in something that had always felt solid. A belief, the belief that approval was the goal. The belief that proving yourself was necessary. The belief that success meant people admiring you. Later that afternoon, the doctors said my father would recover. It hadn't been a full heart attack, more like a serious warning. He would need to slow down, take medication, change some habits. Jake arrived again and brought food. Typical. Jake energy filled the room again, loud jokes, stories, optimism, but something inside me had already gone quiet. I kept thinking about my father's words. Don't spend your life trying to prove you matter. That night I stayed at my parents' house. My childhood bedroom looked almost exactly the same. Same old desk, same posters on the wall, same window facing the backyard. I lay on the bed staring at the ceiling, and for the first time in years, I asked myself a dangerous question. What do I actually want? Not what looks impressive, not what people expect, what I want. The answer didn't come immediately, because when you've spent years adjusting yourself for everyone else, you forget how to hear your own voice, but the question had been planted. And once a question like that exists, it starts growing. Over the next few days, something subtle began changing in the way I looked at my life. Not the external parts, those were still the same. Same job, same responsibilities, same routines. But internally, something had shifted. I started noticing how often I said yes when I wanted to say no. How often I laughed at things that weren't funny. How often I agreed with opinions I didn't believe. How often I shaped my personality depending on the room I was in. It was exhausting just noticing it. By the time I flew back to Chicago, my father had been discharged from the hospital. He hugged me before I left. That was rare. Then he said one last thing quietly. Figure out who you are before life decides for you. I nodded, but at that moment, I had no idea how much that sentence would matter, because the real turning point hadn't happened yet. The hospital conversation was only the beginning, the crack. The moment that would force me to stop trying to impress everyone would come 3 weeks later, in the middle of a room full of people. During what should have been the biggest professional moment of my life, and ironically, it would be the moment everything started falling apart. 3 weeks after the hospital trip, life had already returned to its normal rhythm, at least on the outside. Same alarm clock at 6:30, same crowded subway, same glass office building reflecting the gray Chicago sky, same routine. But something inside me had changed, even if I didn't fully understand it yet. My father's words had stayed in my head like background music that never completely stops. Don't spend your life trying to prove you matter. At first, I tried to ignore it, because ignoring things had always been my strategy. Work harder. Stay busy. Don't think too much. But once a thought like that gets inside your mind, it doesn't disappear easily. It starts showing up in unexpected moments, like during meetings, like when someone interrupts you, like when you laugh at a joke you don't find funny. You suddenly notice things you used to accept automatically, and noticing things makes them harder to ignore. 3 weeks after the hospital, the company announced something big, a major client presentation, one of the largest deals the firm had pursued in years. Everyone in the department knew what that meant. Visibility, opportunity, pressure. Our managers gathered the team in the conference room that Monday morning. The long glass table reflected the fluorescent lights above us. Coffee cups, laptops, quiet tension. This is a huge opportunity, he said, pacing slowly near the screen. If we land this account, it changes the entire direction of the company. People nodded. Some leaned forward in their chairs, others typed notes. Then he said something that made my stomach tighten. And I want Daniel to lead the presentation. All eyes turned toward me. That familiar feeling rushed through my chest. Excitement, pride, fear. This was exactly the kind of moment I had spent years trying to reach. Recognition, responsibility, a chance to prove I belonged there. My manager smiled. You've been doing great work lately. I think you're ready. Everyone nodded politely. A few coworkers tapped the table lightly in encouragement. Inside my head, A voice whispered something uncomfortable. Be perfect. Don't mess this up. This moment matters. I smiled and nodded. Absolutely. The next 3 weeks turned into a blur of preparation. Late nights, endless revisions, slide after slide. Every detail had to be right, every number double-checked, every sentence polished. I practiced that presentation so many times I could deliver it in my sleep. Sometimes I stood in my apartment talking to the wall like it was an audience. Sometimes I recorded myself and watched it back, analyzing every pause, every word, every gesture, because if there was one thing I knew how to do, it was perform, not acting, but performing competence, performing confidence, performing success. It had been my survival skill for years. At work, I became someone who never hesitated, someone who always had answers, someone who looked calm even when my mind was racing, and people believed it. The night before the presentation, I barely slept. My mind kept replaying every possible scenario. What if I forget something? What if they ask a question I can't answer? What if I look nervous? What if I fail? Those thoughts kept looping like a broken record. Around 3 a.m., I finally got out of bed and walked to the kitchen. The city outside my window was quiet. Streetlights glowing, almost peaceful. I poured a glass of water and leaned against the counter, and suddenly, without warning, my father's voice appeared again in my head. Don't spend your life trying to prove you matter. I stared out the window, because deep down, I knew something uncomfortable. This presentation wasn't just about the project. It was about approval. My manager's approval, my coworkers' approval, my family's approval. Everyone. I wanted them to look at me and think, he made it. He's impressive. He's successful. And that realization made something feel heavy inside my chest, because I had spent years chasing that feeling, but every time I reached it, the satisfaction disappeared quickly. Like trying to hold water in your hands. By the time morning arrived, I was running mostly on adrenaline. The client's office was downtown, a sleek building with marble floors and massive glass walls. Our team arrived early, laptops, documents, carefully rehearsed confidence. The conference room they brought us to was enormous, long polished table, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Several executives from the client's company were already seated, serious faces, sharp suits. The kind of room where every word feels heavier. My heart started beating faster. This was it. My moment. The presentation began smoothly. I spoke clearly, confidently. Every slide exactly where it needed to be. The numbers made sense. The strategy was strong. I could see people nodding as I spoke. Everything was going perfectly, exactly the way I had imagined. Until one moment changed everything. It happened about halfway through the presentation. One of the senior executives raised his hand. "Can I ask something?" he said. "Of course," I replied. He leaned back slightly in his chair. Then he asked a question I wasn't expecting. Not about numbers, not about strategy, about something deeper in the proposal, something more philosophical. "Why should we trust that your company actually believes in this approach?" The room went quiet. It was a strange question, but also a fair one. I started explaining the usual corporate answer about research, market analysis, and experience. But as I spoke, something strange happened. The words coming out of my mouth suddenly felt empty, rehearsed, artificial, like lines from a script. And in that moment, I realized something uncomfortable. I didn't actually believe half of what I was saying, not fully, not honestly. It was just the version that sounded impressive, the version that sold better, the version everyone expected. I paused for a second, just a second. But in a professional presentation, 1 second of silence feels like 10. The executive noticed. He tilted his head slightly. "Something wrong?" he asked. That was the moment. The moment that changed everything, because inside my mind, 2 voices started fighting. The first voice said, "Keep performing, finish the script, say the right thing, impress them." The second voice said something much quieter, something my father might have said. "Just tell the truth." My heart started pounding, harder. The room waited, everyone watching, expecting the polished version of me, the impressive version, the reliable version. And suddenly I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Exhaustion. not physical, something deeper, the exhaustion of pretending, of shaping every word to earn approval, of trying to be impressive all the time. I looked around the room, then I did something completely unexpected. I closed my laptop. The soft click echoed across the table. My coworkers looked confused. My manager's eyes widened slightly. The executives leaned forward. And for the first time in years, I stopped trying to impress anyone. "Can I be honest with you?" I said. The room went completely silent. I took a breath, and then I spoke the most honest words I had said in a professional setting. "This presentation is good." A few confused glances appeared around the table. "But it's not the real reason you should work with us." Now everyone was listening. Really listening, because authenticity has a strange power. People can feel it immediately, I continued. "The truth is, half the presentations you'll hear this month will sound just like this one." No one interrupted. "But the real reason you should trust a company isn't the slides." I looked directly at the executive who asked the question. "It's the people." Another pause, then I said something that surprised even myself. "And if you're asking whether we truly believe in every part of this strategy, the honest answer is we're still figuring some of it out." Behind me, I could almost feel my manager panicking, but I kept going. Because good strategy isn't perfect on day one, it evolves. The room stayed silent, but something had changed. The tension was gone. Instead, there was curiosity. Because for the first time, I wasn't performing, I was just speaking. And oddly enough, that moment felt better than every perfectly rehearsed presentation I had ever delivered, but I had no idea yet how that decision would affect the rest of my life. Because sometimes the moment you stop trying to impress everyone is the exact moment everything finally becomes real, and what happened after that meeting would completely change the way I looked at success forever. For a few seconds after I finished speaking, the room stayed completely silent. Not the uncomfortable kind of silence, a different kind. The kind where people are actually thinking about what they just heard. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. My coworkers were staring at me like I had just done something reckless. My manager sat frozen, his hands folded in front of him, probably wondering if I had just destroyed the biggest opportunity our department had seen in years. But strangely, I felt calm, calmer than I had felt in a very long time. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't trying to perform. I wasn't trying to sound impressive. I had simply said what I actually believed. The executive who had asked the question leaned back in his chair, studying me carefully. Then something unexpected happened. He smiled. Not a polite corporate smile. A real one? "Well," he said slowly, "that's the most honest answer we've heard all week." A few of the other executives chuckled softly. The tension in the room shifted immediately. Instead of feeling like an interview, the meeting suddenly felt like a conversation. One of the other executives leaned forward. "So tell us this," she said. "If the strategy isn't perfect yet, what would you change?" For the next 20 minutes, something completely different happened. We stopped presenting and we started talking. Real questions, real ideas, real disagreements. For the first time, I wasn't reading slides. I was thinking out loud. And strangely enough, the conversation was better than anything I had rehearsed. When the meeting finally ended, everyone stood and shook hands. The same executive who had first asked the question stopped in front of me. "You know something?" he said. "What's that?" I asked. "Most people walk into this room trying to impress us." He paused for a moment. "You were the only one who stopped trying." Then he nodded once and walked out. As the door closed behind them, the room fell quiet again. My coworkers slowly turned toward me. No one said anything at first. Then my manager rubbed his face and exhaled. "Well," he said, "that was different." I wasn't sure if that meant good or bad. Honestly, I didn't care as much as I expected to, because something inside me had shifted. On the subway ride home that evening, the city lights flickered past the window while I sat quietly in my seat. For years, I had believed success meant becoming impressive enough that everyone respected you, impressive enough that no one doubted you, impressive enough that people finally said, "He made it." But that meeting had shown me something strange. The moment I stopped trying to impress people was the moment they actually started listening. And that realization followed me home that night. A few days later, my manager called me into his office. His door closed behind me with a soft click. I sat down across from his desk. For a moment, he just looked at me. "You know," he said slowly, "when you closed that laptop during the presentation." He shook his head. "I thought you had completely lost your mind." I laughed nervously. "Yeah," I said, "me too." But then he leaned back in his chair. "And yet, that might have been the smartest thing you could have done." I raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" He slid a document across the desk toward me. I looked down. It was a contract, signed. The company had accepted the proposal. I looked back up at him, surprised. "They chose us?" He nodded. "They said the meeting felt different." A small smile appeared on his face. "They trusted the honesty." For a moment I didn't say anything, because that single sentence carried a strange lesson. All those years trying to sound impressive, all those carefully crafted answers. And the thing that actually built trust was honesty. A week later, I visited my father again. He was sitting in the same chair by the window, sunlight spilling across the floor. "How's work?" he asked. "Interesting," I said. He smiled slightly. "That usually means something changed." I sat down across from him. Then I told him the whole story. The presentation, the question, the moment I closed the laptop. When I finished, he nodded slowly. "Sounds like you finally got tired of performing." I laughed quietly. "Yeah," I admitted. "Maybe I did." He leaned back in his chair. "You know," he said, "most people spend their whole lives trying to impress someone." He looked out the window for a moment. "A boss, a parent, friends, strangers." Then he turned back toward me. "But the strange part is," he smiled softly, "people are most impressive when they stop trying so hard to be." That sentence stayed with me long after I left the house. Because he was right. For years I had believed my value came from achievement, from recognition, from appearing successful. But those things never really filled the space inside me the way I expected. They were temporary, like applause that fades after the show ends. What I had experienced in that meeting was something different. Freedom. The freedom to be honest, the freedom to admit uncertainty, the freedom to stop pretending. Months passed. Life didn't suddenly become perfect. Work was still demanding. There were still stressful days, still deadlines, still pressure. But something fundamental had changed. I stopped measuring my worth through other people's reactions. I stopped chasing every opportunity just to prove something. And interestingly enough, my work actually improved. Because when you stop trying to impress everyone, you start focusing on what actually matters. Ideas, integrity, relationships, real conversations. One evening, about a year after that presentation, I found myself sitting in a small restaurant with a friend from college. We hadn't seen each other in years. He asked the usual question, "So how's life?" I thought about it for a moment. Then I smiled. "Honestly? Yeah, it's simpler now." He laughed. "What changed?" I took a sip of water. Then I said something that would have sounded strange to my younger self. "I stopped trying to impress people." He raised an eyebrow. "That's it?" I nodded. "That's it. Because once you remove that pressure from your life, everything becomes clearer. You stop chasing approval. You start making decisions based on values. You stop performing. You start living. And strangely enough, that's usually when people start respecting you the most. Not because you're trying to impress them, but because authenticity is rare and people notice it." Looking back now, I sometimes think about the version of myself from years earlier, the one constantly trying to prove something, trying to be impressive enough, successful enough, confident enough, and I wish I could sit across from that younger version of me for just 5 minutes. I'd tell him something simple. You don't need to impress everyone. You don't need to prove your worth every day, because the moment you stop trying so hard to be impressive is usually the moment people finally see who you really are, and that person is more than enough.